I thought that that was going to be my biggest change. And I mean, I did everything. I went into like fully ripped the Band-Aid, broke up with the relationship I was in, stopped hanging out with the party friends. Um, quit the job, started to go to different events alone and meet entrepreneurs when I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I thought that that would be my biggest change. And what I've realized now and just surrendered to is the fact that anytime that you want to make a change in your life, you are going to die to your old self. We're back, baby, with a brand new season of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. Join us each week as we have unfiltered conversations about how to transform your life. Our mission is to usher in a new era of spirituality where you don't have to be all love and light to live a life of alignment. Here, we honor all of it, the profound and the profane, the magic and the messy, and all things that make you human. So let's discuss the truth behind transformation and be unapologetic in our evolution. From manifestation to money, embodiment to energy, and all taboo topics, nothing is going to be off limits. Are you ready to live a life that feels just as good as it looks? Let's get fucking spiritual. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to another episode of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. We're back with another solo quickie today. And before we get into the episode, I feel like I want to give you guys a life update, y'all. Oh my gosh, the last month of my life has been so beautiful, so wild. I feel like so many of my dreams are coming to fruition as we speak. And it's a really beautiful place to be. And at the same time, I am so experiencing the dichotomy of life. And the fact that even when we quote unquote arrive or achieve some of our goals, we never actually arrive. And this whole journey is such a process of evolving and becoming and changing and growing and dismantling all of the old ways that we used to be and rewriting a new identity. And just because I've been on this path for 7 years does not mean I'm immune to that at all. I feel like I am dying to my old self over and over and over again, especially now, because when we ask for a bigger life or when we ask for certain manifestations that we want to come through, or we ask for what we want, it requires us to die to the old version of ourselves. And that is so alive for me at this moment. You know, I think when I first went on this journey, at the beginning of my journey, I had my first big spiritual awakening 7 years ago. And I think I thought to myself, like, oh, wow, now it's, you know, that was the most massive change I'll ever have to make in my life. And I went from, if you don't know my story, honestly, I feel like I should do an episode updating you guys on my story. If you don't know my story, I was working a corporate job that I hated in my early 20s. I had been abusing drugs and alcohol, you know, on the weekends, coming out of college, just partying and like not having very much direction for my life. And I took a corporate job. I was there for a couple years and I was working 80 hours a week. I was like burning the candle at both ends. I absolutely hated it. It was a sales job. And my hair was falling out and I was not well at all. And yet inside of me, I knew there was something more. I was like, I'm going to do something with my life. And I feel like I'm meant to. And I'm just like running this rat race and it fucking sucks. And it sucks. And I had experienced a lot of trauma in the years prior to that. My father died when I was 16 and it started my an 8-year kind of depressive spiral, which is when I got into the drug and alcohol. And then I found myself at 23 years old in a freak accident and having to take 3 months medical leave from this corporate job. And I said to myself in that moment, Well, at first I was pissed. And then after the first couple of weeks wore off, I realized this is my moment to change my life. And after those 3 months, after I rehabbed my leg, I quit my job and I dove headfirst into learning self-development. And I had this huge awakening that I wanted to teach this with my life. And I wanted to transcend, what I had gone through and use what I had gone through for good. And at the time it was really about making it so that my dad's death wasn't for nothing. And I thought that was going to be my biggest change. And I mean, I did everything. I went into fully ripped the Band-Aid, broke up with the relationship I was in, stopped hanging out with the party friends. I, quit the job, started to go to different events alone and meet entrepreneurs when I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I thought that would be my biggest change. And what I've realized now and just surrendered to is the fact that anytime that you want to make a change in your life, you are going to die to your old self. And that's what this episode is going to be about. Is just the fact that when you are making changes, you have to be willing to die. And because of that, you're going to have to grieve. You're going to have to look at all of the habits that are no longer aligning with this version of you. You're going to have to look at the people that are no longer aligning with you. You're going to have to look at the way you spend your time management, your self-sabotaging patterns, the way you overeat or overspend or overscroll, the way you spend your money. Literally, you're going to have to look at every single area of your life and be willing to change it. And there's so much that comes along with that. I think that we can look at people on the internet and we think, oh my gosh, they must have it all together. Oh my gosh, they must have figured it out. And, it always blows my mind when you guys tell me that you see me that way, because I certainly am not that. I figured a lot of things out, but I am most definitely human. And I'm 7 years into this journey now. I'm 3 years into this podcast with a little bit of a break in between. And we're almost, 9 months into the second season. And I just got off of hosting a retreat for the most incredible women. And we went really deep. And I feel that I really anchored in my knowing as a facilitator and a professional, and anchored in my own trust with myself of what I teach, which is basically how to overcome yourself and how to come back home to the truth of who you really are. And we do that through regulating the nervous system. We do that through somatics. We do that through different ways of facilitation in person. And it was really, really beautiful to see. And I'm about to go fly out to do a huge interview. And I think all of these things that me 7 years ago would have thought, oh my gosh, I've made it. Wow. And yet I'm realizing in this next chapter, wow, there's so much excitement. I feel such a depth of trust within myself, such a deep knowing of where I'm going more than I ever have before. And that knowing feels calm. There's also a deep grief. Because here's the thing. When you make a choice for a new life, when you make a choice to do something different, when you decide to declare and claim who you are going to be now, there is a whole death and rebirth cycle that you will have to go through. And so far on my path, it seems to be inevitable. I don't think that we can really skip it. And for me, what I realized is, oh, wow, in order to steward the energy that wants to come through me, I'm going to have to change the ways that I show up. I'm going to get to change the ways that I've operated to get me here, because the thing is, what gets you here won't get you there. So even if you've made change in your life, if you are calling in a higher frequency, if you're calling in a bigger life, if you're calling in a more abundant business, if you're calling in more impact, or if you're calling in a deeper connection with your partner, if you're calling in, more expansive friends, whatever it is going to require that you look at all the ways in which you are operating that cannot currently be a match for that reality. And for me, it looks like, oh, I get to really upgrade how I'm treating my body. I already eat well, but I go to sleep maybe a little later than I should. And I can feel the effects of, oh, I better be a professional in how I show up for me, not just a professional in my work environment. But day in and day out, what is it that you are doing? And is it matching what you're calling in and who you're becoming? And it's so present for me right now. Because quite frankly, and I hope this is helpful that I share with you guys in real time where I'm at, I feel like I have so much that is happening that's on my vision board currently at this moment. And yet at the same time, I have like an old operating system running in my body and my being, and even some of the ways that I'm thinking. Still noticing sometimes my inner critic showing up, or still noticing sometimes my fear of not belonging, or still noticing my fear of fucking it up. And having to be so hellbent on not allowing those thoughts to be in my field and in my awareness for too long. Not allowing myself the grace that I once did, because I'm really calling in a new expansive way of being, and I'm anchoring that into my body, and there's an importance inside of that gets to come through. How am I managing my time? Right? How are you managing your time to call this thing in? Because you won't get in life what you journal about. You won't get in life even what you affirm. And if you could say affirmations over and over and over and still not receive the blessings, because you get in life who you be. So the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is only going to give you what you currently now can handle and are ready for. I'm so grateful that the me 7 years ago didn't have the level of responsibility and platform that I do now. And I guarantee you the me in 7 years is going to be so grateful that I didn't get all the things right now that I desired. Because we're only given what we have the capacity to hold and to manage and to be with. And yeah, it's funny. I actually got on this episode to talk about the inner critic, and this is what ended up coming out, is just the fact that if you want a new life, it's going to cost you your old one. And it's going to cost you your current ways of being. So to make this practical, and this is what I'm doing right now, write down where you desire to go. Write down where you're headed, write down what you want. And then write down the version of you that has it. What are her habits? How does she operate? How does she move throughout her day? What is her attitude? What are her thought patterns? Like literally get as granular as possible with this. What are her beliefs? How would she be? And the belief follows the being. So you could start practicing those beliefs and they probably won't feel fully true to you right now because that wasn't who you were being. But if you start to adopt her habits, if you start to wake up earlier, if you start to make one post a day like you've promised yourself to do in your online business for a long time, or if whatever her habits are, if you start to do the habits, you start to be her in action, the beliefs will follow. So you're writing down, she's confident, she's alive, she's magnetic. She, walks into a room and just lights up the room. She's kind, right? All of those things, especially like the confidence and the way she talks and she's sure of herself and she trusts herself. All of those things will come after the habits of she wakes up early, she gets dressed well, she, fills herself with podcasts and books instead of Netflix and scrolling. She reaches out to 10 prospects a day in her business, or she, whatever those things are that you identify that she does. She works out every single day. She cooks homemade meals so it feels so good in her body. Yes, you could stand in front of the mirror and say, I feel so good in my body. And you get to do that. However, what's actually going to make you feel that, what's actually going to make you feel confident, what's actually going to make you become her is by becoming her through her habits. So that was the nugget of wisdom that was supposed to come out in this episode. As I'm talking, I'm like, that's it. The beliefs follow the being. So you will become confident. You will become become self-assured, become self-trusting, become more magnetic the more that you adopt her habits with repetition. And honor yourself in the grief process. Honor yourself in the resistance. I'm honoring myself in the resistance right now as I reorient how I operate and how I be. So yeah, I guess this episode isn't really about inner critics at all. Although you've got to be hell-bent on silencing the inner critic. But yeah, this ended up being about you have to die to your old self. And the first transformation that you have is never going to be your last. And if you decide to walk this path, it's actually just going to be a path of change and evolution over and over and over again. So just surrender to that at this point. And it can be fun and it can be joyful and it can be enjoyable. And it doesn't have to be so heavy all the time. It can be fun reinventing yourself and becoming an even more elevated version of your identity. So I hope this was inspiring you today and we can walk this path together, because I'm certainly on this path. Me 7 years ago would be floored at what the me now has created. And I think the future me 7 years from now is going to be really grateful to the me now for choosing to become her. And I have no doubt that that is going to be true for you as well. So I hope that this episode gave you a little inspiration and nugget of wisdom and an exercise to do to identify where it is that you want to go and then to reverse engineer how to become her through her habits. And just know that there might be grief along the journey, but you get to trust yourself to handle it and you get to open to feeling it all. And I have a lot of episodes on that, on how to somatically process and feel the emotions that are in your body. Because that's what this journey is about. It's about feeling it. It's about continually evolving, recommitting over and over and over again, and being willing to look at it all and be with it all and love yourself through this whole process. And yeah, with that, I hope that you got some good nuggets of wisdom out of this short little solo episode. And I have some really big announcements coming up for you guys very soon. So just stay tuned for that, because there's going to be a chance for us to travel out of the country together. That's all I'm going to say. And with that, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. I am so glad that you're here. And if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share this with a friend that you feel needs to hear it. And if you are really feeling the love and support for this show, this podcast thrives off of your listens and your reviews. So I would love if you could leave us an honest review. We would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions, And it helps us get this podcast in the hands of more people and would mean so much to me to receive your support. So thank you.